About 10 years ago, Michael Ballantyne of the BC Folklore Society got hold of me and referred to me as a storyteller. I took it as almost an insult. I don't tell stories.
Right. These are true things. Yeah.
I'm a historian, sort of thing. And the fact of the matter is, I couldn't succeed in getting my message across if I didn't present it to you as a story. Mm-hmm. So I see myself as a writer-historian, writer/historian. That's one. Entertainer, firstly, because if I don't entertain you, I'm not going to inform you. And then that allows me to teach, and from time to time to preach. I told you I'm a lone gun. And I often thought to myself, if I didn't have to give a good part of my day to living, if I could apply myself totally, who knows what I would have achieved. I've been called the Pierre Burton of British Columbia, okay? And I might have really been Pierre Burton of British Columbia if I'd had been able to give more time. I think I play a really strong role in the Cowichan Valley of promoting and nurturing heritage, which, as I've explained earlier, to me is not just a matter of personal hobby, it's a matter of our lifestyle, of maintaining a lifestyle that's been built on such rich and great sacrifices by other people in the past. And we owe them in one sense to keep it alive, but it's to our own benefit to keep it alive for our children and their children and so forth. That's the future of the country. It's built brick by brick. The history is in my DNA, and from that point on I was a writer. I didn't marry the two, and there's something about the printed word, the smell of ink, so I ended up with a print shop for 30 years. When I was a kid, one of the big pleasures for my mother was a Sunday drive. Pat Bay had been a training airport in the Second World War, so when the war ended, there were 100-odd aircraft of different types, and before they were sold off, they were in a field. The road, McTavish, I guess it is, it went right past it. My father would do the loop. And so here I am, 6, 7, 8, and there's all these aircraft lined up as far as the eye could see. And I begged and I begged and I begged. I wanted to get in there. They're behind a fence. And it was always, well, next time, and yeah. Never happened, and one day we went, we're gone. And I made a vow, even then. When I was old enough, and I had a car, and I saw anything that grabbed my fancy, I would indulge myself. And that's what I do as a writer. Selecting material, I choose what appeals to me. Well, I had for 2 years I've been writing I've written previous columns in Victoria in the Nanaimo paper, and in fact just before this column I had for 2 years had a column in the Nanaimo paper, not on Nanaimo history, on island names. You know, how did a geographic feature get its name? One day I decided to try a Cowichan Valley history column, and so I went to the paper with it. They jumped at it and told me it would begin at the end of the month, and it was in the next paper. And I've become almost totally identified now with Cowichan. I try to walk my dog, Sophie, up to 4 times a day, depending upon scheduling, because I've metered. It's exactly a mile from my doorway and back. So if I can do it 4 times a day, that's 4 miles. I am naturally physically active, and I love the fresh air. And that's one of the real benefits of the writing and the writing of our history, is I go out in the bush and I look for the abandoned railway grades and the ghost towns, the abandoned mines, the stories that are out there in the bush. I'll do a show and tell from time to time at clubs and what have you, and I deliberately take nondescript items. I mean, you see a bunch of bricks here at the foot of the stove. Every one of those bricks is from an historic site. Every one of those has a story to tell. Anyway, my point is, I will take along a piece of rusty iron or something like that because there's a story behind it, and I know the story. If I just took it along as a show and no tell, well, it wouldn't be very impressive. I mean, I belong to a collector's club. There are people that collect really classy things, quality things. Doesn't do a thing, well, it's not my thing, okay? I want something with substance, with meaning. And so what you might think is a rusty bit, I mean, you came in past my
all that's what I
that
thought.
stuff.
This is everything here.
The mining and stuff that's out at my front step. And the coal car, by the way, here's a story for you. I know a couple of guys who they have their own miniature railways in their yards. And they knew that I was hoping one day to build an ore car. I was finding pieces to them out in the woods and hauling them home, and I could trade and what have you. And I was going to build an ore car. Yeah, right, like in another lifetime. Anyway, and one day I got a phone call. No, pardon me, it was an email. Are you going to be home Tuesday morning? Yeah. And they showed up with that ore car that they had built for me from all real parts. There's only the wood and the drawbar, which has history itself. It came from the Chemainus mill, which they couldn't find a real one at the time. 10 Vancouver Island communities were founded on coal. The 3 primaries, Nanaimo, Ladysmith, and Cumberland, but 10 in total. It was as big in its day as logging has ever been. By the way, I had my one choice. Without heads down, it's the coal mining history of Vancouver Island. Started out because of the drama value. You know, nothing like a coal mine disaster and the widows and the wives up at the head frame, you know, waiting for word and this kind of thing. So, but there's more to it. It's much more textured than that. And anyway, my point is that I'm out to write. That's going to be my lifetime book. I'm set the goal to get back to finish the researching of it. I've begun, but to finish the researching of it in 2014 and write the book in 2015. And this will be my personal tribute to the men and women. No, you didn't have women underground, but you had women married to miners. It's a composite, it's a family unit. And this will be the best thing I've ever done. Because it'll come straight from the heart. Everything I do, you could say comes from the heart, but this is going to be my penultimate, the very best that I can do. The big one is to save Morden Colliery Provincial Park. That's the last surviving headframe tipple of the coal mining on Vancouver Island. All the rest were timber, so they're gone. This was built of concrete. And it's an ungainly structure. It is starting to crumble because it's a very early project with concrete. I've had several lifetime dreams, and one of them, or lifetime goals, one of them was to have a library. Now, books on a shelf, or shelves, or on a coffee table, that's not sorry, that's not what I meant by library. I wanted to be surrounded with wall, you know, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. And I've achieved that. I call myself a social historian because it's the human level that makes it. If I'm going to write about Georgia Strait, which is named after King George III, the mad King George, then I want to capture some of the color of his life. It's not just going to be a dry historical thing that he was king from 17 so-and-so and lost the United States in the Revolution. No, I want to come up with a slice of him that makes him a human being, but entertains at the same time. We take far too much as our due, and I suggest we have no right to, no moral right, because we haven't earned it. Now, I'm not asking anybody to go to war, but I said to you earlier, there's a million ways that you can participate in society, right from volunteer groups or anything, but there's ways that you can give back. And when you give to the community, you're actually giving to yourself. It's self-enriching. It makes for a healthy community. Because it's what I said to you. It's legacy. It's part of our national being as Canadians. And if we disconnect and we just think that that our lives are solely in identifying and filling our wants and needs, well, that's a very shallow life. So history, as I said, is not a choice of subject matter. It's a recognition of who we are, why we are, how we got here, what we stand for, where are we going. To be a conscious citizen of a country, you have to be informed. You know, you read your papers, you watch the news and do all those good things to be informed. And you take an interest. At the very least, you take an interest